In every age, men have been taught to chase beauty, to worship the feminine, to kneel before the altar of desire, and in every age the majority of men have obeyed. But there is a different kind of man, one not driven by the primal call, but who instead governs it. That man, the one who controls his lust, is not merely rare. He is feared. Why? Because he cannot be controlled. A man who bows to every curve, who chases pleasure like a starving dog, reveals a mind easily led. He may speak of freedom, but he is a prisoner to instinct. His hunger makes him predictable. Flatter him, tempt him, offer him warmth, and he folds. But the man who controls that hunger, he is an enigma. His eyes are sharp, not soft. His silence unnerves, because it is not born of confusion, but of calculation. You cannot bribe him with beauty. You cannot enslave him with desire. Women fear such a man, not because he is violent, but because he is sovereign. He does not need, he chooses, and that choice changes everything. He redirects the fire of lust into the forge of creation. He builds, he leads, he shapes his world. Where other men are drained by constant longing, he is energized by purpose. Where others seek validation, he seeks mastery. Women, whether they admit it or not, recognize this power. They sense a force not desperate to please, but destined to rise. This fear is not hatred. Often it is admiration cloaked in confusion. For the woman who encounters a man she cannot seduce is left only with his mind. And that is far more terrifying than his touch. Control of lust is not celibacy, it is not denial, it is domination. To the man hearing this, you were not born to be weak. You were not born to chase endlessly what will never fill you. You were born to reign, not over others, but over yourself. To the women who wonder why such men walk alone, know this: they walk alone not because they are unwanted, but because they are choosing something greater than temporary affection. They are building, they are waiting. And when they do choose, it will not be out of hunger, but out of vision. And vision, unlike lust, does not fade. The essence of power has never rested in the ability to act without limit. It lies in the ability to refrain from acting when every urge compels you forward. To control lust is to seize command over the most impulsive and primitive of instincts. It is to silence the voice that tells you to take, to chase, to consume. This control is not merely moral, it is strategic. For a man who denies himself nothing becomes nothing but a slave to his appetite, and a man who restrains himself becomes terrifying in his unpredictability. He is no longer a creature of reaction, but a force of intention. Lust is the easiest leash by which to lead a man. It requires no chains, no prisons, a beautiful smile, a soft voice, a promise of warmth, and most men surrender their judgment, their dignity, their focus. They spend their days fantasizing, their nights craving, their strength spent in the pursuit of that which ultimately weakens them. A man ruled by lust is a man whose enemies need only offer temptation. He is not dangerous, he is easily mapped, easily swayed. But the man who denies the lure, who does not tremble at the curve of a body or the breath of flirtation, cannot be used. He cannot be bought with beauty. He is feared because his motives are no longer carnal, they are calculated. Such a man unnerves others. In his eyes there is no hunger, only clarity. He walks into a room and does not seek attention. He commands it, not with loud words, but with silent discipline. And because he cannot be manipulated by lust, he becomes a mystery to those who rely on seduction for control. Women who are accustomed to immediate influence through their allure begin to question their power in his presence. Not because he is cruel, not because he devalues them, but because he is not swayed. He sees beyond appearance, beyond charm. His gaze cuts deeper. It looks for substance, for soul, for alignment of purpose. Many confuse restraint with weakness, but it takes far more strength to hold back than to indulge. A man who chases every desire is not free. He is merely reactive. Like a leaf in the wind, he moves in whichever direction the breeze of temptation blows. But the restrained man is like stone, still anchored. His desires exist, yes, but they do not master him. He has stared into his own chaos and chosen not to feed it. This choice, repeated daily, forges a will that others cannot fathom. And in this will lies a rare and intimidating form of power. Restraint is not suppression, it is redirection. The same fire that consumes the weak when misused fuels the strong when controlled. A man who governs his lust channels that energy into discipline, into building, into strategy. He becomes more focused, more determined, more visionary. His goals are no longer interrupted by every fleeting impulse. He does not lose days chasing what offers no lasting fulfillment. Instead, he gains time. He gains presence. He gains self-respect. Women do not fear this man because he is against them. They fear him because they cannot predict him. He does not follow the rules written by society for the average male. The rules that say men must pursue, must beg, must prove their worth through sexual conquest. This man is not interested in conquest for its own sake. He seeks connection only where it adds value, where it aligns with his purpose, and that selectiveness, that inner autonomy makes him rare, and rarity is always unsettling. It is easier for the world to understand a man who is easily pleased. It is safer for systems of control to deal with men who need gratification to feel worthy, but the restrained man has already found his worth within. He has made peace with solitude. He does not chase to escape himself. He builds to express himself. And such a man cannot be led by those who deal in shallow currency. So many men fall not because they lack talent or potential, but because they are trapped by their urges. They trade empires for one night. They trade peace for attention. They sabotage themselves for approval they do not need. The man who controls lust avoids this trap entirely. He does not rise and fall at the hands of attraction. He rises and stays risen because he controls the one thing that topples most kings, desire ungoverned. In the end, it is not the absence of lust that gives him power. It is his dominion over it, and that dominion, silent and unseen, shakes the foundations of a world built on distraction. Desire in its rawest form is chaotic. It is hungry, blind, and desperate to be fulfilled. When left unchecked, it consumes rather than creates, but when a man learns to govern his desire, especially his lust, something transformative happens. What once was a fire that scattered his energy becomes a forge for something greater, purpose. Controlled desire is not about suppression. It is about intelligent redirection. The man who does not allow his lust to lead him becomes capable of leading himself, and in doing so, he begins to lead others. There is a hidden cost in indulgence. For every moment spent chasing temporary pleasure, a moment of progress is lost. Lust demands attention, it occupies the mind, it distorts priorities. It makes men forget the long game in favor of short-term satisfaction. It convinces them to pause their mission, to dilute their focus, to trade vision for validation. And this is why controlling lust is not simply a personal virtue. It is a tactical advantage. The man who controls his desire reclaims time. He reclaims clarity. He reclaims the part of himself that the world tries most to keep distracted. When lust is mastered, it becomes a source of power, not weakness. This transformation begins internally. The mind clears, the body strengthens, discipline becomes a companion instead of a struggle. The man begins to channel his restless energy into learning, building, and refining. His focus sharpens, his goals crystallize, and he becomes intolerant of mediocrity. He begins to move with intention, no longer swayed by passing impulses but driven by a deeper hunger, one not for pleasure but for impact. This is purpose born from self-mastery. Controlled desire also reshapes how a man sees others. No longer blinded by sexual craving, he begins to see people for their essence, not their appearance. Relationships shift from codependency to collaboration. Love becomes a choice, not a need. Connection becomes about alignment, not escape. He no longer seeks women to complete him. He is already whole. In this wholeness, he becomes more capable of giving, leading, and protecting, not out of obligation, but out of strength. A man in control of his lust is not running from the world. He is building a world that reflects his values. Purpose demands sacrifice. It asks for the rejection of distractions, the abandonment of comfort, and the consistent death of the weaker self. Lust is often the first and fiercest temptation. It is the easiest to indulge, the hardest to master, but the man who rises above it proves to himself that he is capable of enduring discipline. And once that discipline takes root, it becomes the foundation for all other pursuits. Business, legacy, leadership, fatherhood, philosophy. He who can control his base desires can control the higher domains of his life. This is why controlled lust is feared by many, because it represents the arrival of a man who cannot be bought. When a man no longer chases pleasure, he becomes immune to the systems designed to manipulate him. The world is built to sell to the hungry, not the satisfied, and so the man who is no longer ruled by desire becomes invisible to those who traffic in temptation. He stops being a target and starts being a threat. His presence disrupts the emotional marketplace. He is no longer predictable, and that unpredictability makes him powerful. Even his enemies struggle to understand him. They cannot calculate him through their usual methods: flattery, distraction, indulgence. Women, too, often find themselves unsure of how to relate to such a man, not because he is cold, but because he is calm. His interest is measured, his affection is earned. He does not fall in love out of loneliness, nor does he seek validation through conquest. He gives only what he chooses to give. This restraint is not distance, it is refinement. The power of controlled lust is most visible in silence. It is in the moment when a man says no, not because he is afraid, but because he knows what he is saying yes to instead. It is in the moment he chooses to work late instead of chasing pleasure. It is in the moment he walks away from what once controlled him. That is the seed of greatness. That is where purpose begins, not in grand declarations, but in the quiet mastery of self. A man becomes unstoppable not when he has everything, but when he needs nothing. And the man who controls his desire is the man who can walk through a world of temptation untouched, not because he is numb, but because he is awake. His energy is no longer wasted, it is invested, it is not scattered, it is aimed, and that aim builds nations, changes lives, and etches his name into the legacy of men who chose purpose over pleasure, and built empires from it. There is no greater strength in a man than the ability to rule over his emotions, especially those tethered to lust, approval, and validation. Emotional sovereignty is the art of standing unshaken in a world designed to stir, provoke, and manipulate. A man who does not seek external permission to feel valuable, who does not require constant affirmation to remain confident, and who does not crumble when denied affection, is a man who holds power not just over himself, but over every situation he enters. It is this kind of man that society cannot predict, and it is this unpredictability that draws both fear and deep respect. Women instinctively recognize this. For centuries, they've seen men broken by beauty, by attention, by rejection. A simple glance can make most men weak. A cold shoulder can make them spiral. Emotional dependency has made many men puppets, easily controlled by praise or punishment. But when a man breaks this pattern, when he detaches his sense of identity from how he is perceived, he becomes untouchable. He does not overreact. He does not beg. He does not chase after being chosen. His energy is not pulled in every direction by fleeting feelings. He remains composed, deliberate, and grounded. This composure unsettles those who expect to provoke, seduce, or manipulate. Such a man becomes emotionally self-sufficient. He is not hard, but he is immovable. He can love without attachment, care without clinging, and walk away without losing himself. He may feel deeply, but he is not ruled by what he feels. His decisions are guided by reason, values, and vision, not impulse or insecurity. This mastery is rare, and rarity always attracts fear and fascination. Because where others crumble under pressure, this man sharpens. Where others run from discomfort, he walks through it. Emotional sovereignty turns pain into insight and rejection into redirection. It transforms chaos into calm and calm into control. In a world where emotional reactivity is common, calmness becomes commanding. It is the man who does not respond to provocation, who does not chase what disrespects him, who does not fold under guilt or seduction, who is seen as powerful, not because he dominates others, but because he refuses to be dominated by emotion. His presence is quiet but imposing. You cannot shake him with insult. You cannot lure him with flattery. You cannot break him with silence. And so many fear him, not because he is cruel, but because he is free. Freedom, especially emotional freedom, is terrifying to those who are used to control. A woman may find herself attracted to such a man, yet confused by him. She is used to men who show their worth through constant attention, who make their emotions obvious and available, who seek closeness at all costs. But this man gives space, he gives time, he gives energy only where it is respected and returned. His love is a gift, not a surrender, and gifts cannot be demanded. They must be earned. The emotionally sovereign man is not without emotion. He simply owns it. He may be passionate, but his passion is placed with discernment. He may be romantic, but his romance is not a tool to gain favor. It is an expression of already existing abundance. He does not fear loneliness, for he has made peace with it. He does not beg for understanding, for he understands himself. And when someone leaves, he does not fall apart. He moves forward, not out of spite, but because he knows his value remains intact. This level of emotional mastery elevates everything around him. His friendships become stronger because he no longer lies or pleases out of fear. His work improves because distraction no longer controls him. His presence becomes rare and respected. Women admire him, even if they fear they cannot control him, because he brings something refreshing, certainty, direction, and calm leadership. He is not reactive, he is intentional, he doesn't love recklessly, he loves with strength and purpose, and when he gives his heart, it is not out of desperation, but decision. To control one's emotions is not to suppress them. It is to sit with them, understand them, and then rise above them when needed. This control is not coldness. It is clarity. It is the difference between being driven by storms and becoming the storm itself. And those who master this walk through life with a silent authority. They may speak softly, but their choices are thunder. They may not demand respect, but it follows them naturally. Because when a man no longer needs your approval, your games lose power. When a man no longer fears your leaving, your presence becomes a privilege. And so the emotionally sovereign man does not seek to impress. He seeks to express. He does not perform for affection. He simply stands as himself. That presence, unshaken and unapologetic, is what the world respects. and in many cases fears. Because in a time where everyone is chasing attention, the one who doesn't need it commands it.